Okay, I hope I am clear now. Okay, we had a little connection problem, and I hope it's settled now. Thank you, thank you. Okay, at the end of this session, we hope to reach the seventh day of God's activity, and that day He is going to take rest. And the Bible will tell us the reason behind the Shabbat or the seventh day. I will quickly share the slides, and we continue from where we stopped in the last session. Okay, the highlight of today's class will be the climactic passage about the creation of the human being when God said, "Indeed, it was very good." So we will look forward to that statement from God as we continue this pilgrimage of faith. So we are at the priestly account of creation, chapter 1, the P tradition or priestly tradition, where God creates the world for the human beings in 6 days and rests on the seventh day. We have been seeing the first week of human history, and the week can be taken differently. As when we conclude, I will refer to that. Is it a one day or one era or whatever it is? Or right now, we will take it as it is, one day, uh, which is leading up to the seventh day Sabbath observance. Okay, the previous class we said Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 is a prelude to the book of Genesis and the book of the Bible, where in one sentence we have the subject, God, the activity, creation, created, and the object, everything, everything in the universe, the heavens and the earth. And prior to the creative act, the world was a formless mass, which is translated in by different translations as the trackless waste and emptiness. That is what we find in the New Jerusalem Bible footnote, tohu wa bohu in Hebrew, the only time these two words come together. There is also watery chaos and darkness. So prior to the creation of different life systems, and of course before that the universe itself, the light and all that, there was darkness. So we are saying, or the Bible tells us that evil, which represents darkness, is not created by God. Okay. And in this chaotic and voidless situation, as in the previous New Jerusalem Bible, trackless waste and emptiness, the Ruach Elohim, the wind of God, the Spirit of God begins to act. And that word is beautifully translated by certain versions as hovering. And the prayer that we had at the beginning of this session also pointed out to the activity hovering over the waters. Okay, we also saw the 6 days activity uh, is structured uh, into two sections. Day 1 corresponds to day 4, day 2 to day 5, day 3 to day 6. So 6 days of activity, and we will see that there are 8 actions, 8 creations, and they are limited to 6 days. And we saw that there was a pattern, a repeated framework: announcement, command, report, evaluation, temporal framework. And this is a pattern that we follow from day 1 to day 6. And God said, "Let there be," and it was so. And God saw that it was good. It was evening, it was morning. The first day, the second day, the third day, and so on. Okay, on the first day, there was the creation of the light, because without light, there is no creation. Light is necessary in order to see the creative activity. And we also saw the power of God's word. Let there be. The whole creation takes place in chapter 1 by the power of God's word. Those of you attended my previous sessions would remember the Mesopotamian epic of Enuma Elish, which is similar to the um, creation story, which of course was written several centuries prior to the Genesis. In that account, the creation takes place through violence and conflict and through a struggle. The biblical author in chapter 1 would tell us that God creates everything here out of his word, and the ease with which he is able to create the entire universe. We also saw that God named the light day and darkness light, already introducing us to the reality of the ownership of God. One who names has the power of authority, ownership. God has authority over all that he has created, and there is an evaluation. God saw that it was good, an affirmation of the goodness of the creation that God has made. Okay, and we concluded last class saying that with regard to the temporal framework, we do not, in our language and category, say evening came, morning came. We say morning and evening. Instead, ancient Israel was sharing the idea of their cosmogony with their neighbors of ancient Near East, where the day begins with sunset and ends with sunset, sunset to sunset. Okay. Let's now move to the second day. Verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." This uh, dome, this dome is translated as firmament in some translation. ESV translates as expanse, or space between the waters, New Living Translation, Vault, New Jerusalem Bible. What is this actually? Literally, it means something hammered out flat. It's like a metallic piece, flat metallic piece made out, So, so let us look at the ancient Near Eastern concept of the universe, the heavens and the earth, and also there is below the earth something, we will see that. So the concept of a divider between the heavens and the earth. So the dome or the firmament or the vault, whatever you want to say, depending on the translation, is to make a marker, a divider between the heavens, the heavenly sphere and the earthly sphere. And remember, he said there was a chaotic waters. So water surrounded the entire world. It is so in most of the ancient creation stories, not only in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, and even in some Indian mythologies. The there is the struggle to keep order in the waters. Even in the Indian mythology of the churning of Palari, the great river. So water surrounded the entire world. The sky is pictured as a bowl set upside down to keep the upper water in place. I will show you the picture a little later. So, okay. Uh, you see the picture here. It's like a dough. Maybe another one more picture. Okay, look at this picture. There is a dough, a ball kept upside down, and all the rest of the place you get water. The whole universe is surrounded by water. So on the second day, God made this dough to separate water above and water below. So this earth is a flat space. So I think it is important for you right now, in order to understand this creation story and also the rest of the Old Testament and even New Testament, because the biblical authors were children of their time. Let's look at this picture. You find a dome like this, the black dome. You see the cursor. So before God created, the whole universe was just water. On the second day, God set a limit. He separated by use of this firmament or a sky in order to keep the water above and below. On the left side of this picture in golden color, and on the right side, there are two foundations of the heavens. The heavens, this disk or this dome is supported by two foundations. Below this flat disk, again in the golden color, you get the foundation, the pillars, the foundations of the earth. And you see water all around, you see. At the middle of these lower waters, you find the Sheol, the place of the dead. Those who attended my class on Revelation would remember this place, Sheol, the place of the dead. Still below, there is a great deep and water. Okay, come back to this picture later. Now, this is a black and white, something very similar. The earth, underworld, Sheol, pillars of the earth. the pillars of heaven on either side. Uh, so uh, this door is to separate the earth and the heaven. So the sky is to create a vast hollow between the upper and lower waters. And the heavens is considered as the heaven is also considered as a solid space. It's different from our understanding of the universe today. That's why even in the Old Testament, waters above the solid wall to heaven refers to a heavenly ocean. Psalm 104, Isaiah chapter 40, and so on. So Old Testament idea of a heaven is something that is solid. And the bowl, what we call the firmament or the dome, had windows. And there are, through these windows, rain, snow, and hail will reach the earth. And the water, okay, the water below the sky that you see on this flat disk, on the earth, the separation will be done. Will be streams and seas, yeah, and ocean. Okay. So the water will be collected together and they will form streams, lakes, and the springs. At the time of Noah, as we will see a few weeks from now, there will be the removal of this separation. At the time of creation, God is putting order in the chaotic waters and putting separation, upper water, lower water, and then he closes all the windows. At the Noah's time, there is going to be a decreation, when that separation will be removed. The windows will be open, as you see on that day. All the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Genesis chapter 7, verse 11. So there is a creation, decreation, and recreation. Okay, this will take place in the coming weeks. And then we go to the day 3. That's verse 9. Verse 9 completes the second day's separation. So far, there are 3 separation. First, night and day. Verse 4. Verse 4 spoke of separating light from darkness. So night and day. So separation is based on time. Separation is based on time. Secondly, second one is the separation of waters. Water above, water below. Then the third separation is a separation of the water and the land. So even on the earth, he will separate the dry ground and the watery area, and there appears the earth. So there are on the third day there are 2 events: the appearance of the earth first. Second, after the earth is created, there is the creation of vegetation. God sprouts vegetation. So 2 activity on the third day, and the vegetation is meant to reproduce itself. Reproduce itself. Vegetation that is able to reproduce itself. I would like you to take note of this word, to reproduce itself. If you look at the sentence, verse 11, that the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. If you continue reading, again in verse 12, fruit with the seed in it. Did you notice the repetition of the phrase with seed in it? The biblical author is going to convey a very important message. Fruitfulness is not something dependent on the gods of fertility. I repeat, fruitfulness is not something dependent on the gods of fertility. God has put the power of reproduction in vegetation itself. Therefore, fertility is the gift of God. You should know the context. The context is, they are living in the midst of other cultures, especially in the land of Canaan. They are with the Canaanites. The Canaanites believed that their God or gods, Baal, Asherah, and all other minor gods, they were responsible for giving fertility to the land. If they sowed seed or wheat or rice or paddy or barley or whatever it is, and if they sprout and they're able to produce harvest, they believed that it was the gift of fertility given by their gods. Now, in that context, in that cultural context, the biblical author is telling, no, look at the plant or the fruit. God has given the power to reproduce itself because God has placed the seed in every plant and fruit. So, verse 11, plants yielding seed and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. We are not speaking of 20th century, 21st century, sorry, when we have invented hybrid type of plants. Hybrid is unknown to the biblical world. They are conveying a very important truth and the faith of Israel that God is finally responsible for the fertility, and each time you are not going to be dependent on God because God has placed the power to reproduce itself in every plant and fruit. So each plant and fruit has the inherent power to propagate itself. This is very important. Please pay attention to it. Let's go to the fourth day of creation. Fourth day corresponds to the first day because we already saw on the first day God said, let there be light, and there was light. Light has been already created. Don't think of today's scientific explanation. You might ask, if God created light on the first day, why is that He is creating the source of light on the fourth day? No, their mind is different. So light has been already created in on day one. Now on the fourth day, the sun and the moon are created to divide day and night. Now, friends, I would like you to go through your biblical text. Does the biblical author refer to sun and moon? I did, but not the biblical author. Biblical author has not mentioned the word sun and moon. He carefully avoids the term sun and moon. Instead, the author uses greater light. God made, verse 16, God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. All the listeners and readers will understand that the greater light is the sun, sun, and the lesser light is the moon to rule the night, and then the stars. Very important truth. What is the biblical author telling us? And remember, this is a revolutionary statement of faith. Revolutionary statement of faith. Sun and moon were considered deities in the ancient world. Why to speak only of the ancient world? Think of our own times. Even in 2020, some people will still depend on the movement of the sun and the moon to look for the good woman. Sometimes marriages are arranged, housewarming is arranged, depending on what we call the so-called muhurta, no? Because it is based on the belief that sun and the moon and the stars control our destiny. And thousands of years ago, the biblical author is contesting that statement. Sun and moon are created entities. So the author seems to say, who are those whom you consider as gods? Look at it. It's just big light and small light. They are just created things, and they are not gods to be worshipped. And also, the biblical authors later will tell us, Deuteronomy, for example, in the prophet Zephaniah, the worship of a heavenly host is forbidden. Worship. Okay, we know that they are, we depend on them for many things, for light and all that, but they are not to be worshipped as gods. This is a very, very, very important statement of faith made thousands of years ago. Okay. On the fifth day, verses 20 to 23, or the fifth day, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky. These uh, four verses, 20 to 23, they tell us about the creation on the fifth day, corresponding to the creation on the second day. Because on the second day, we saw that God created the dome to separate upper water and lower waters. And the corresponding fifth day, the sea, the lower water, and the skies, upper water, they are to bring forth life. They are to bring forth life. So it's on this fifth day that you got to see the animal or the bird's life. Yeah, the animal will come the following day, but on the fifth day, the living creatures, birds and fish, birds and fish. So the creation of birds and fishes marks the first appearance of life on the earth. That's on the fifth day. I would like you to take note of a verb here again, verse 21. So God created. I would like to highlight this word. In Hebrew, it is bara. We began the book of Genesis with that verb, Bereshit, in the beginning. Elohim, Bereshit, bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Bara, creation. So nearly 50 times, 50 times this word is used. And always, God is the subject of this word. So creation is the activity of God. And in this chapter 1, we find several occurrences of this word, bara. That's why I would ask you to take note, even in verse 21, when he is creating the birds and the fishes, when life appears on this earth. Uh, on the third day, uh, we found that the earth teemed with vegetative life, vegetation on the third day, with every type of fruit trees and vegetation, plants yielding seed, fruit trees of every kind. So on the third day, the earth is full of vegetative life. On the fifth day, the seas are teeming, swarm with living creatures. I would ask you to take note of another aspect here. The text seems to tell us that the birds and the fishes originate from the seas. Okay, it's strange, but that's what the text is trying to tell us. And the creation of the human being will make it this clearer. The God created, verse 21, the great sea monsters. Okay, sea monsters. What are these sea monsters? In the cosmogony, the picture that I showed a few slides earlier, the three-tiered cosmogony, the sky, the heavens, the flat earth, and below the earth, the sea, the waters, the Sheol, all that. That is also the residence of the sea monsters. And which are these sea monsters? We have a number of references in the Bible, Old Testament, also in the book of Revelation, those who followed me, book of Revelation. In Psalm 74, 13, it says, you broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. Dragon, some places translated as dragon. In Genesis, in this verse 21, it is called sea monsters, sometimes dragon, sometimes serpent, different names. If you look Isaiah 27 1 or Job 41 1, and in some Psalms, some names are given, particular names are given. Leviathan. But some places, like in Isaiah Job, it's called Leviathan. He has control over the lower realm of the earth, the underground, the watery area. Leviathan is a name that you will remember. And elsewhere in the book of Psalms, another name, Rahab, is also given. Anyway, the biblical author is telling us that there are these sea monsters who control the water below. Okay. So God is the one who created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. Every winged bird of every kind. Sorry. Okay. And God said, am I audible? Okay. God said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on the earth. Yes, please take note of this as well. Verse 22 says, God blessed them. Once this life arrived on the earth and the sea, above the on the skies and on the water, as I said, both the fishes and birds originated from the waters. God bless them, and He gives a command. Looks like this is the first command according to chapter 1. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. Remember, on the third day, when God created the vegetation, He gave them the power to reproduce themselves by putting the seed. And now, to the fishes and birds, He would say the same thing in a different word with a command: be fruitful and multiply. And that looks like the first command. So God blesses them by empowering them to propagate themselves. So, chapter 1, or the first account of creation, gives a lot of importance to procreation, propagation, self propagation, propagation of species of every kind. Okay, so we will move to the sixth day, activities of the sixth day. And there are two events taking place on the sixth day, because there were two events on the third day. So, which are the two events? First of all, uh, the earth to bring forth living creatures of every kind: animals, cattle, creeping things, wild animals. Yeah. So all living creatures of every kind, the earth is supposed to bring forth. Because in verse 20, the waters were instrumental in bringing forth the birds and the fishes. So now earth is bringing forth animals, cattle, creeping things. And verse 24, 25, especially 24, let the earth bring forth. It is a maternal verb. Bring forth. Maternal, giving birth. It's a maternal feminine verb, suggests that animals are immediately bound to the earth. In chapter 1, I repeat, in this first account of creation, how the animals are linked to the earth. Please note this, because when we go to the second account of creation, chapter 2, it will be different. Okay, but this chapter 1, the animals are linked to or bound to the earth, because the earth is the mother, the maternal world, because the second activity is different. So see the link between the earth, mother earth, and the animals, the creeping animals, the cattle and wild animals, and so on. And on the second activity of the sixth day is the climax, the creation of human beings, the creation of human beings. It's interesting. See, when God created different things from day one, it was just by one word: let there be, let there be light, and there was light. Let there be a dome, and there was a dome and separated the waters, etc. In one phrase or one sentence or one or two or three verses, the whole day's activity is wound up. What happens here with the creation of the human being? You see the whole preparation, whole preparation. Habitat is prepared for the creation of the human being. 6 days activity. The chaotic water is set in harmony, separation of waters, day, night, darkness, light, and the separation of land from the waters, the creation of vegetation, because man has to eat all types of plant. Even if he eats the vegetable, they will have to create again. So he has put seeds in them and so on. So now the second part of the sixth day, before he created the human being, a habitat is perfectly created, made. Every other forms of life is created. When everything is ready, God creates the human being, and they are two, man and woman, male and female. Let's go to the text. Uh, verse 26. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image. Those of you who are following NRSV, there is a footnote for humankind in Hebrew. It's given there, Adam, Adam, or in English we say Adam, Hebrew Adam. So let us make Adam in our image, according to our likeness. There are two problems. Is the climax or the high point of creation? There are two issues. First of all, let us make Adam in our image. The old versions, RSV, Jerusalem Bible, or the older versions translated Adam as man, meaning human being. Because of gender sensibility, sensitivity. The modern translations have used inclusive language as a human being, humankind or human being. So that let us make humankind in our image. Who is this us? Elohim said, let us make humankind. Who is this us? That's the first question. Second question, what does it mean to be created in the image of God? Image of God. We will try to answer. This us, many scholars would tell us, it points to what we call the plural of majesty. Plural of majesty. What do you mean by this plural of majesty? What we call the royal we. The royal we. When kings were still ruling, when kingship was existing, the kings would decree, we, King Edward of England, we. It's because actually the king started using this, at least in England, they started using this royal we, traces back to 1169, when Henry II used this word we to refer God and I. When the king makes an edict, a decree, says we command, he is including even God, stating that no, the command is not just by him, it comes to him through God. The mandate that is given to him by God. So even millennia before, thousands of years earlier, in the ancient world, and the ancient Hebrews too spoke of God in the plural. I'm speaking the ancient ancient Near Eastern cultures used deity in plural. That is why even the word Elohim, Elohim is, that word is plural, but used with a singular verb, indicating that it does not mean a multitude of gods or plurality of gods, but a single person. Although the word is plural, Elohim, and the fact that the verb is used as singular tells us that Hebrew God is a single person, monotheistic God. Does not mean many people, but I think it refers to that idea of deity used in plural. There is also a remnants of pagan mythology. That's the second idea given by the scholars. God, when the verse, look at verse 26, for example, let us make humankind in our image. It is understood as remnants of a pagan mythology, where God consults with the heavenly council before the creation. God seems to create, consult. He has the angels. If you take Isaiah chapter 6, 8, there is a heavenly court with the seraphim. Yeah, just verse chapter 6, verse 2. Seraphs were in attendance above him, and the glory of God. He is sitting on a throne, high and lofty, and the hem of his robe filled the temple. If you read through Isaiah chapter 6, you will find this idea of God as enthroned king, monarch with a lot of attendants. The seraphim are attending on him. And there also, verse 6, 8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, the Lord is saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us? Who will go for us? In this text is clear that us is the heavenly council. God has a heavenly council. Uh, and the proof of that is also found in other texts like in First Kings and Job and so on. So the Bible accepts the picture of assembly, but God alone decides. Others don't decide. God has absolute power to create and also to decide. So he consults sometimes, as in the ancient Eastern, Near Eastern imagery. Okay, that's the first explanation. How do we explain this term? Let us make. So it is not plurality of gods. It's God as either as a royal plural, the plural of majesty or royal we, or the ancient idea of a God consulting his council. And the second issue is let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness. Our image and our likeness. How do you understand this? This is going to tell us something very important. What is the origin of the human being? Previously, we have seen that the earth brought forth vegetation. The sea brought forth fishes and birds. The earth again brought forth animals. The human being, image and likeness of God. Image and likeness of God. Friends, please go through verse 27. Please go through verse 27. So God created bara, humankind, Adam, in his image. Again, in the image of God, he created him. There's a footnote. In Hebrew, it is him, Adam. And male and female, he created them. Male and female, he created them. I will come to the expression of the word Adam a little later. But let us explain what we mean by this image and likeness. Okay. The human being is, in a way, statue of the deity who will rule over all creatures that God created. What do you mean by this statue? When you see image, okay, are we thinking of a photocopy? If okay, we know we have different, we come from different races, Dravidian, Aryan, Negritos, Caucasian, Mongoloid, so many times, so many races. If you think of we as a Xerox copy, a photocopy of God, how come our faces are different, our noses are different, our fingerprints are different, our color is different? So don't think of a physical photostat, photocopy of God. It's not physical. Although I use the word a statue, I will explain why I use that. Another traditional view, especially the Catholic view, the traditional Catholic view, was this image as to think of soul. Okay. The human body is there. Human being consists of or composed of body and soul. But the idea of the human being as body and soul is typically a Greek idea. A Greek idea. So, maybe a thousand years after this Genesis was written, when the Greeks came over to the Holy Land with the Alexander the Great in 333, and later the so-called Hellenization and the translation of the Bible into Greek called Septuagint, and later the influx and the influence of Hellenization into Judeo-Christian understanding, we have the Greek terms coming in. So it is the Greek understanding that the human being is made of body and soul. The Hebrew mind is just one reality. In fact, there is not even a word called soul as we understand in English coming from the Greek terminology. So the biblical author would not have thought of this as soul as we understand, but the Hebrew word refers to the image. In the ancient Near Eastern countries, the emperor is not able to visit all the places that he has conquered. Instead, he sends his statue to the places where he has conquered to show that that image represents the king. So that image of the king, the statue, whatever it is his representation. He may not be physically present there, but that image uh, shows the presence of this king there. And the statues or statue is taken to different or distant parts of the kingdom. And moreover, the king was often called the image of the deity. The king himself, if you take the case of the Hammurabi, the code of Hammurabi, he explains that he is the representative of King Shamash, the sun god, and this god has entrusted to him the task of taking care of all people, especially the vulnerable. And there, the so-called uh, the biblical triad that we speak in the biblical time, the widow and the orphan. Widow, especially the widow and orphan. Not the triad, the pairs, the widow and orphan. He says he is the representative of King Shamash, King, the sun god. So king was often called the image of the deity. The, in the ancient world, the image was used to refer to a statue of the king that was sent to. So the image was to be the representative of the king in that area. Now, please use that. Apply this idea to Genesis. To be created in the image of God is to be God's representative on earth. I repeat, to be created in the image of God is to be God's representative on earth. And this will be highlighted, especially the verse 27, the repeated use of the how many times that word image is used, image, and later on this words image. We saw in 26 verse 26, image and likeness. Again, that image is repeated, verse 27. Humankind in his image, and image of God he created them. So this is to tell us that as God is the ruler of the heavenly realm, the human being is the ruler of the earthly sphere. And this is a very high, exalted view of humanity. And this we shall not forget that we human beings are God's viceroys, God's representatives on this earth. Let's go to, okay, I will, before we go to 28, I will refer to that word Adam. Male and female, he created them. Before that, God created Adam, and RSV humankind, RSV man, Adam in his image. So it is not the masculine, the male person that is mentioned here, although RSV used to man, or the older translations used always man. God created man. Okay, they translated referring to the humanity, not just the masculine, not just the male person. Because in next chapter, chapter 2, we will see when it is referring to a male, masculine, it is not Adam that is used, ish. Another word is used, masculine. So God created on the sixth day the humanity, human being. And humanity is what? It consists of male and female. It consists of male and female. The biblical author sharing the idea of their time that together man and woman constitute humanity, and it is not one person. It's a humanity. It consists of male and female. Together, they constitute a reality. Okay, so I think that is clear. So we go to we continue from here, verse 28. There is a pun, in verse 27. God Elohim bara, God created. 28. Elohim barek, God blessed them. God bless them. There is, if you know it's interesting, even 28, there are several verbs that are related, okay, which are not clear in the English translation. Let's forget about it. But God bless them. Just like in verse 20, when he created the animals and so on, verse 22, God blessed them. Now God bless this humanity. And then he has something to say. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So it's like a same movement, one movement. Dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. And there can be a misunderstanding when we speak of subduing and dominion. Friends, this verse has been used over centuries as a biblical support, to destroy, and to exploit this earth. To exploit. A misunderstanding of this text. Subdue and have dominion. What do you mean by this? If you continue reading, it will explain what this dominion is. God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, etc., etc. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, birds of the air, everything that creeps on the earth, I have given every green plant for food." Yes, the clue is there. Human dominion is limited as it is shown by the vegetarian requirement. Vegetarian requirement. So in order to highlight what type of dominion it is, the text tells us that there is to be no killing, even for food. And later on, this command will be relaxed after the flood. In the recreation, chapter 9, that command will be relaxed. Killing of animals for food, but even there will be some restrictions. But in this chapter, uh, there is no violence at all. So when you say that the human being is in the image of God, he has to be like God, benevolent and peaceful. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 6 and 6 to 8. Like peaceful. He does not oppress, attack, does not use violence. Okay, this has to enter into our psyche, because wrong reading of this will enter us into great difficulty. And it is in that context, the present Pope Francis has brought out his earlier letter of apostolic letter of Laudato Si, and now the latest encyclical Fratelli Tutti, that we have to take care of this Mother Earth, not to exploit, because we are the stewards of this creation. Okay, and we'll continue. End of verse 30. And it was so. Verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. If you happen to count the number of times the evaluation that God makes, it was good, the light was good, God saw that it was good, verse 10. If you count prior to verse 31, there are 6 times the evaluation is done as good. And the 7th time, the biblical author has used a superlative. Superlative. When I took Revelation, I mentioned that the Hebrew language does not have superlatives, unlike in English. In English, when we want to say he is tall, the other one is he is taller than the first one, and the third one is the tallest. Tall, taller, tallest, good, better, best. Hebrew language uses different ways to convey this superlative. What way? used to use the same word thrice. Holy, holy, holy. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Letter to in the book of Revelation. So they can either use 3 times same word to show this superlative degree, or as in this verse 31, indeed it was very good. See the evaluation that God makes at the end of other creative activity. He made an evaluation. It was good. While for the human being, superlative, superlative, the best of God's creation. And look at the number of verses prior to that. God discussing, God thinking about it, and he makes a decision, and the creation is not out of the earth or the water, but he is created in the image and the likeness of God. And that's the conclusion to the 6th day. Let me conclude with the 7th day, the hallowing of the 7th day. Chapter 2, verse 1 to 4, first part of 4. For part of chapter 1, in the sense of coming from the same author, same author. So, verse 1, chapter 2, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the 7th day, God finished the work that he had done. We have the hallowing, making the 7th day holy. The word Shabbat, Shabbat is the basis. Shabbat is rest. The verb Shabbat, or the verb rested, God rested in verse 2, chapter 2, verse 2, verse rested, is the basis for the noun Sabbath or Shabbat, Shabbat or Sabbath. Exodus chapter 31, Exodus chapter 20. God will make it as a rule, as a commandment. Make Sabbath, make holy the Sabbath, the a part of the Decalogue, the commandments. And before that, right, that in chapter 2 of Genesis, God is giving us, the biblical author is giving us the foundation or the basis for the Sabbath observance. Because 6 days God uh, worked, and 6 days God made 8 separate acts of creation. 8 days. Sorry, 6 days, 8 activity. Because on 3rd day and 6th day, there were 2 activities each. This verse 2 and 3 are to tell us why every Jew, every biblical author of the time, should rest on the 7th day. The 7th day happens to be Saturday. That's why, Israel even today, Sabbath, Saturday is the holiday, day of rest. So, because God rested, as we find 3, verse 3, so God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in the creation. And the story, the P writer's story of a creation ends as he started the chapter. He started the chapter at the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. And he concludes with a statement: the heavens and the earth were created. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. What we call the inclusio. It begins and ends with the same idea or the same phrase. Okay, I think that's for today. Today, in the sense for the class. Before Brother Dixon will take up, I just want to exhort you. Maybe there is a misunderstanding with regard to the assignment. He may say about assignments differently, but please, assignments are, I hope Brother will agree with me, that assignments are not mandatory. They are not mandatory, but they will help you to go through carefully the biblical text, and they will help you to focus on what we do, and that's the purpose. And probably also they are meant to issue the certificate, but you don't have to do it if you don't want it. Because of assignment, please do not get frightened and do not leave the class because of assignment. Okay, that is only to clarify, and mother might say. So I'm ready for clarifications and.
Yeah, so we got quite a few questions actually. We'll try and take all of them as soon as okay. So in the story of uh, okay, in the story of creation, were people of other faith existing?
No.
Uh, those of you who listened to me in the first class would remember that Genesis, like just like other four books of the Pentateuch, they are written at different times by different people, different authors, we call it as. And we, for technical reasons, we gave some names. You don't have to worry about those names, but for technical reasons. Um, so this part of tradition, this story was written, we believe, were written by the priestly writer, maybe after 587 BC. So when it was written, when this account was written, there were already different cultures living in this world. So this is the faith expression of their belief in the Creator God. Yes.
Okay, so quickly going to the next question. Uh, is the upper water the sky? When you were referring to that,
Would you repeat?
is the upper water that we were talking about, is that the sky? In the dome, is the upper water the sky?
Yeah. The remember the ancient people when they looked above, they saw the sky like a canopy, like a dome, and they believed that there were windows. That's why when it rains, water comes from above. Water comes from above. So they believe that all these waters were deposited above the dome. And when God wants, or gods, they believed, the ancients believed in the gods, because they were either happy with the human beings, they would send rains at the correct time. If they're angry with the human beings, they will send rains, flood, etc. at the wrong time. So they believed that there was water. So that's the original idea, was that the entire universe was full of water. And in the creation story, they were one of the first thing they did was to separate, keeping water above and water below.
And moving on to the next question, does the command to be fruitful and multiply, is it applicable to humans as well as what we generally hear? Be fruitful and multiply. Should we take that?
In a different sense, yeah.
Yeah. I think, in the first account, uh, the first creation story, what is highlighted, the importance is given to the multiplication, the propagation. Uh, uh, in fact, the blessing that God gave to the human being, uh, God said, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Fill the earth. And this priestly writer in the coming chapters also will show that this command of God to fill the earth was realized when the human race went over to different parts of the world. So this was important. This was important. The multiplication, the propagation. So for the plants and fruits and animals, and finally also to the human beings, God gave this command.
Yes, just taking a few questions, just putting it together. Few are I'm not able to really capture it, so I'm just going to skip those questions. But one question is, how do we reconcile Darwin's theory with this theory of evolution? That the theory of evolution with what we are talking about now.
Yeah. I'm not coming strictly to that right now because we will not have time. But I will, when we conclude some time, I will speak about this evolution and how to connect the biblical account with the present scientific theories. I will do that because even the Pope Emeritus, Pope Benedict himself said that Bible is not against the theory of evolution. I will.
Okay, okay. Quickly go into the next one. It's many times we is referred to the Heavenly Father, Holy Spirit, and Jesus who are involved in creation. So, what are all the three involved in creation? Does us mean the Trinity?
Okay. Remember, uh, Genesis was written for Jewish people. Okay, the first beneficiary of Pentateuch or Genesis were the Jewish people. So they could not conceive of plural God or the sense of the Trinity that we know in the New Testament. So even it would have been difficult for listeners of Jesus to understand, you know, that Jesus was the Son of God and so on. So they would never conceive of an idea that God is plural or God is a Trinity and so on. So they had a strict monotheistic idea of God. So the author who wrote it would have never thought of that because that idea never existed at that time.
Okay, very quickly. So, when we say that the earth was formless and void, covered in an abyss, is the darkness due to the fall of Lucifer, as we say in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 14? Down to Sheol, you will be brought to the depths of the pit. So, when we talk about darkness and void, does it refer to the evil or does it refer to the fall of, yeah?
I think there were different ideas of creation that came up in the later theology of the Old Testament, in Isaiah and in the wisdom literature later, in the Proverbs and Sirach and so on. But the Genesis chapter 1, we are now speaking of chapter 1 only, Genesis chapter 1. There it appears that darkness was already there. And we really don't know the origin of evil because darkness is associated with evil power. So God is not responsible for the creation of darkness or evil. Otherwise, we will, or people will put the blame on God for creating evil. So here the issue of Lucifer, etc., all that will not come here in this chapter 1.
Okay, quickly moving on. Why was vegetarian diet changed to non-veg after the? I mean, the idea of God creating everything. Yeah. So why was it non-vegetarian? Where did that come from?
Yeah. The biblical author is telling us to take care of do not do any harm to even to animals, even for food. So, not that animals were not killed when this was being written. Okay, if it was written around 500 BC and so on. Long before that, Jewish people were using meat, not vegetarian style of life. But the other biblical author is telling uh, that God has created everything with a purpose, and the human being is given the power. Not only human beings. See, look at even for the animals. Verse 30, and to every beast of the earth, every bird, everything that creeps, I have given every green plant for food. So even the animals, in the wild beasts are supposed to go vegetarian. But that is that did not happen. That does not happen. So he is conveying an idea that there's a total harmony there. That will be continued in the next chapter also. There's a total harmony between all the human beings, sorry, all the created beings. So, in order to highlight this aspect of protecting the environment, he is using this term. As I said, even this command will be revised in chapter 9 of Genesis. After the recreation, decreation, the recreation, God will revise this rule.
Very quickly, we just have 2-3 more. Hope we can wait on. Yeah, just a few more questions. What is the church's teachings with regard to the image and likeness of God? We are the image and likeness. How do we think about that?
Yeah. In the theological anthropology, uh, this will be an important theme. But I don't know if I will have time to explain that right now. But quickly, I will say that just that one word that I repeated earlier, that human being is the viceroy or the representative of God on this earth. So we, by action, not in essence, not in being, we by action do what God would do to preserve this universe, to take care, the stewardship. That is what is understood as with regard to the relationship between human being and the created reality. Okay, the idea of a soul, etc., came in the Catholic teaching by the church fathers. Okay, right now I will not go into that. First question is, use the word is conquer and be masters. It's also God who is authority. Worship. Clarify first question. Okay, we go Saturday and Saturday. We go Sunday. Yeah. First one is okay. Conquer. It's a wrong translation. Okay, someone said the question was not.
I
You
mind
repeat
us mute. I just repeat the question. So just 2 questions. First question is the verb used is conquer, be masters. And it sounds like God is giving authority to living creatures. It does not indicate stewardship. So that's the first question. Second thing, if God has declared Saturday as the Sabbath day, why do we follow Sunday as a holiday and not follow God's command?
I think the word conquer is a wrong translation or a misrepresentation, because soon after that, if you continue reading verse 29, 30, and so on, you don't even not to harm in any way, not even to harm an animal for food. So that clearly states what God meant by this subdue. So it is not to conquer. And the second was Sabbath. See, many things in the New Testament are revised from the Old Testament. So the New Testament, the Christians follow Sunday because it is on that day that the resurrection took place. Jesus resurrected. The resurrection took place on Sunday. So still then, and that right from the beginning of the church, the Christian community gathered for the celebration of the Eucharist on that day, first day of that day. It's called the Sunday because Jesus rose on that day.
We're actually running out of time. We're actually quite late. So we thank Father for this class. Just a few things about the assignments. kindly do not worry about the firstly, please submit your assignments by maybe by next Tuesday or Wednesday. That'll be fine. I would suggest you try and do the assignments as it comes, so that at the end it does not seem like a burden for you. As father said, it's more for a learning process. It's not so much for like a test or something like that. So that's definitely our intention. And so we thank you for participating, and we hope to see you tomorrow, same time at 6 o'clock. Shall conclude. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. So God bless you all. See you tomorrow.